For those who are not aware, and since we're all addicted to Twitter, we're probably all well aware today is April 1st, April Fool's Day. And of course, on April Fool's, Vitalik Buterin has published a blog post that really seems to play with the ambiguity of the date as to whether he is entirely serious or not. It is primarily, I think, a sincere argument for the value of quote unquote Bitcoin maximalism. George, do you want to? You said the M word a minute ago. You want to talk about what Bitcoin maximalism is, and then we can go into Vitalik's post.
Yeah, in its most crude form, Bitcoin maximalism means the only cryptocurrency that matters is Bitcoin. And if you even think about anything else, and you're a bad person and you're attacking Bitcoin. And I think Vitalik did an awesome job on this piece in particular. I also thought he was hilarious. Half of these things he said were really funny. My favorite quote, well, I had many favorite, but one of the quotes is, Vitalik, and he's talking about himself here, Vitalik is a hippie-happy, globe-trotting pleasure and status seeker. And he deeply enjoys meeting and feeling respected by people who are important. And there were just a bunch of these things kind of thrown in there to make you think, maybe he's not really telling the truth about, maximalism being good. But then he'll say some things about, hey, privacy is important and we need to have people who will fight to the death for a specific blockchain. So It's all over the place, but I think he actually does a really good job putting together this framework of you're allowed to have a world where Bitcoin sits in its own little category. It acts as the dumb rock, beautiful, simple cryptocurrency, immutable, all that good stuff. And then you have this whole other world where you can throw the metaverse in, you can throw the NFT. Sounds like I'm throwing Jen under the bus here, but all of the things that Jen loves and, all the dexes that we all love and stuff like that. And that's fine. You can actually have those two things. And I think Daniel Kuhn for CoinDesk wrote a really good article a while ago that said something along the lines of, you can be a Bitcoin maximalist and still like Ethereum. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm one of those people. I just don't think it's an attack on Bitcoin at all. And if it is an attack on Bitcoin, Bitcoin's strong enough to take it. I don't know if anyone wants to latch on to anything I said, but I said a lot of stuff.
Well, you've done a great job, I think, of getting to the nut of his argument, which is you describe Bitcoin as a dumb rock, which is obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but kind of true, that the Bitcoin maximalists are very hostile to any attempt to change Bitcoin. We saw a really clumsy one earlier this week from Chris Lerner at Ripple, who just sort of flailed about talking about proof of stake Bitcoin in a way that made absolutely no sense.
Chris Larson, sir. Chris Larson. Yeah. Put some respect on the name. I want to get my
slander correct.
There you go.
So we see these kinds of things all the time, and Vitalik's point is that when you add new features, when you innovate, that introduces risks, especially to a decentralized system where we have these bridge hacks happening constantly. Ethereum has been hacked so many times in various ways through contracts that are functioning as written. And so the point is that Bitcoin can be that last line of defense, a thing that, at this point, it's been going on for a decade. It's experiencing what has been called a Lindy effect, that because it's old, it's durable, and we know it works, and that makes it more valuable to resist change. And it kind of, we're scrolling past the, I think, most trolly part of Vitalik's post, by the way, where he cites Kevin Pham, of all people, who is now, I think, a BSVer and has been for a while. So he's, taking pot shots while making a real point. I think it's a really brilliant post in terms of playing with the April Fool's element, because Kevin Pham, a bit of an April Fool himself. Zach.
Yeah, this is like Vitalik Gigabrain at its finest. And I think we've seen Vitalik really lean into this public intellectual figure, right? He is he has a book. He is speaking on topics that don't necessarily speak exclusively to the crypto world. And I think this is a continuation of that work, right? Here's Vitalik. He's sort of the figurehead of Ethereum. And here he is out here unpacking the big ideas that make the world computer interesting, controversial, debatable, at least something to think about. And I think Vitalik, as the emissary to explaining some of these ideas and some of the internal tensions that exist in the world of crypto, he's a fantastic person to be doing that. And I think this post is sort of him at his finest, as he really leans into that public intellectual role for the Web3 world. But David, I want to toss it back down to you. I think you're writing about this later on today. Is that right?
Yeah. So if you subscribe to our Node newsletter, you'll be getting something fairly soon, and it'll be up later. Just quick kind of summary analysis of the post. Oh, I was going to wrap up, but Jen, you want the last word on this one?
I was just going to say, Vitalik is so smart and funny. He's like one of those prolific comedy writers, like the writers from The Simpsons, who can say so much, and the people who really get it. But then the people who don't can learn a lot and still laugh along. And that's what I took away from this. I thought like he did such a good job at explaining so many things that are often very complicated to explain, especially to newcomers to the space, to people who are trying to understand these concepts. And I thought it was such a pity that we're talking about it on CoinDesk, and this wasn't published in a publication that was more mainstream for people to read about it and then maybe understand later why it's so kind of funny and clever at the same time.
Yeah, I think there could be some confusion if you're a novice coming into this. But the last thing I will say is that Zach mentioned that Vitalik is a public intellectual kind of beyond crypto. I think even as important as that is just the fact that a post like this shows that he sees crypto as a very diverse ecosystem. He's not standing Ethereum, even though he created it. He's talking about the way that different systems interact and the fact that a lot of systems ultimately are dependent on Bitcoin stability, whether it's for backing or in other ways. Tether relies on that kind of thing. So, I think that confusion can be productive. And I think what Vitalik here is sowing some productive confusion.